I want to start this year off with one of my all-time favorite motivational movies from my childhood. No matter how many years go by, I still remember the plot twist that rocked my pre-pubescent world. Although I watched this movie from time to time as a much-needed reminder to keep moving forward, this movie has one of the most unsatisfying revenge story arcs I have ever seen. This is 2007 Meet the Robinsons.
All it takes is some imagination and a little science, and we can make the world a better place.
There is a lot of timeline hopping and going back and forth from the past to the present, back to the past, and to the future. It is a little confusing, so please bear with me. Our main character, Lewis, is one of the many kids at 6th Street Orphanage. He is creative, inventive, and eccentric. Because he is so unique and unconventional, he fails to get adopted. And after being rejected so many times, he develops a deep fear of rejection. The beginning of this movie for sure starts off a little sad. Our main character needs something to overcome and rise above. Lewis's school hosts a science fair, and he decides to invent a device to recover forgotten memories.
My real mom is the only person who's ever wanted me. If she wanted me then, she'll want me now.
Lewis has given up on being adopted, and his goal is to remember the person who dropped him off at the orphanage. He assumes that this person is his mother, the woman who gave birth to him, and that she also wants to reunite with Lewis. At the science fair, a mysterious, obviously villainous character appears wearing a bowler hat. The bowler hat man ruins Lewis's invention and ends up stealing the memory scanner for himself. In the original timeline, Lewis's invention is a complete success, and Lewis is set on a certain life path. But because of the bowler hat man, everything gets messed up. Lewis is feeling embarrassed, angry, and completely defeated. This is when a boy from the future makes an appearance. This boy's name is Wilbur, and Wilbur takes Lewis to the future to motivate him to return to the science fair to fix his invention, the memory scanner. By fixing his invention, he will fix the original timeline and set everything back to its rightful place, theoretically. I don't know or understand much about time travel, but isn't this creating a butterfly effect? Now that the past is altered, isn't there no guarantee on a set or fixed future? I feel the need to watch a Neil deGrasse Tyson video breaking all of this down. But for right now, let's not think so hard about it. While Lewis is in the future, the bowler hat man encourages Goob, Lewis's roommate, to let the seeds of evil, hate, and vengeance plant and take root within him.
Let hate be your ally, and you will be capable of wonderfully horrid things.
Because Lewis stayed up so late into the night to work on his invention, the memory scanner, Goob, his roommate, also stayed up late into the night, unable to fall asleep due to Lewis making so much noise and being so disruptive. In the middle of his baseball game, Goob fell asleep, and he is the reason why his team lost the Little League championship. So back to the future. Lewis meets Wilbur's quirky family members who remind him to keep moving forward.
From failing, you learn. From success, not so much.
This is exactly what Lewis needs to hear. And this is one of the main reasons I loved watching this movie when I was younger, since I wish someone would root for me when I failed too. The family from the future, the Robinsons, lets Lewis know he doesn't have to leave and offers for him to be a Robinson and become a part of the family.
You want to adopt me?
This is when Wilbur reveals Lewis's hairline, and everyone is shocked. The Robinsons take back their offer to adopt Lewis, which is so messed up. They don't even explain why. Lewis completely misunderstands and runs away. The plot twist that rocked my world when I was a child first watching this movie is that Lewis is meeting his family in the future. His future son, Wilbur, his future wife, his future adopted parents, his brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and more. This is the family he has always wanted and dreamed of for so long. The second plot twist is that the bowler hat man is Goob, Lewis's roommate. So the bowler hat man shows up in the future and takes Lewis back to the past, where he reveals his true identity and backstory. Just like his teammates blamed him for losing the Little League championship game, Goob placed all the blame on Lewis. Over the years, Goob let his anger fester and grow. Because of this, no one wanted to adopt him. At school, Goob believed that everyone hated him. So even when the other kids tried to reach out to him and be his friend, he ignored them. Eventually, the orphanage closed down and everyone left, but Goob stayed behind. Time passes and we see Goob stuck next to the radio, hearing all about Lewis's accomplishments. Lewis graduated from college at the age of 14, won a Nobel Prize, and more. Meanwhile, Goob is still stuck in the same place, wearing the same outfit, the same baseball uniform he wore in his childhood as a teenager, a young adult, and to this day he is still wearing the same outfit. This is sickening. Not only does his outfit not change, but his environment doesn't change as well. He is still sleeping on a bunk bed in the same room at the orphanage that has now shut down and is completely abandoned. Goob puts all the blame on Lewis for the state of his life, and he decides to get his revenge. We then see him outside of Robinson Industries, the company that Lewis founded, throwing eggs at the building. In the middle of completing his revenge, Goob is approached by Doris, the bowler hat. And her backstory is that she was one of Lewis's failed inventions that was forcibly shut down and stored in a warehouse filled with his other failed inventions. Doris escaped from this warehouse, met Goob, and together they devised a plan for revenge, which was mostly Doris's idea. They stole a time machine to return to the past and steal Lewis's invention from the science fair. All Goob cares about is ruining Lewis's life. He has no regard for how the future timeline will be altered. At this point, it became absolutely clear that Doris, the bowler hat, is the true villain, and she is the one who is controlling and manipulating Goob. After the bowler hat man reveals his true identity and tragic past, Lewis apologizes, but he brings up the important point that he shouldn't be blamed since it was on Goob for focusing on the negatives, on the bad stuff, when all he had to do was let go and keep moving forward.
Take responsibility for my own life or blame you. Ding, 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 ding. Blame you wins hands down.
From this conversation, Lewis comes to the realization that, like Goob, he has also been in a spiral of negativity. He has developed a fear of rejection, a fear of failing, a fear of failure. All he needs to do is let go of the past and move on. And the same goes for Goob, but Goob isn't listening or paying attention. Everything is going in one ear and out the other. Fast forward to the future. Doris, the bowler hat, betrays Goob and takes over the human race. Lewis returns to the past and says he will never invent the bowler hat, and this defeats it. The bowler hat just vanishes. This particular timeline, where the human race is enslaved, is erased, like it never happened in the first place. I don't get how this is possible, but again, let's not think too hard about it. Lewis arrives at the science fair with his invention, the memory scanner, but he realizes that he has forgotten something. We then see Lewis at Goob's baseball game, where he sees Goob sleeping on the field. Lewis yells for Goob to wake up, just in time for Goob to catch the baseball pitch, winning the Little League championship game. At the science fair, Lewis's invention works, and he wins first place. In this scene, Lewis also meets his future adoptive parents and his future wife. Both Goob and Lewis get adopted, and everyone has their happy ending. This movie ends with the following quote: "Around here, however, we don't look backwards for very long. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors and doing new things because we're curious. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. Keep moving forward."
I'm just not so sure how well this plan was thought through. Master?
Now that we've gotten to the end of this movie, let's talk about one of the characters that has grown on me the most. One of the villains in this story, the bowler hat man, Michael Goob Yagoobian. Goob reminds me a bit of Megamind from Megamind and a little bit of Mojo Jojo from the Powerpuff Girls, and I love it, but I also pity him greatly. There is a moment in this movie where the bowler hat man is triggered when his plans don't work out and he calls himself stupid. Then he beats himself on his head. Poor Goob. As an adult, Goob seems pretty stunted mentally. He is the perfect symbol of someone stuck in the past and what happens when you grow up stuck in your past trauma that occurred as a child. He is forever childish. He is forever childlike. Goob is still wearing his old baseball uniform from when he was a boy and played in the Little League. This was back in elementary school. This was decades ago. Goob has some obvious, glaring mental problems that were never addressed. He even calls himself disgusting. I almost cried. This is both hilarious and incredibly sad. I think the delivery and timing are what made it funny in a shocking sort of way. Similar to Hey Ya, which is such a fun, upbeat song with serious and deep lyrics, both are alike in how they present something tragic in a light-hearted, comedic way, which is why I found myself both laughing and shedding a tear or two at the same time. The bowler hat man's backstory, Goob's backstory, it was pretty disturbing and deranged. I would have lost my mind as well. He wore the exact outfit in which he experienced trauma in his childhood every single day for years. He remained in the same exact room he grew up in at the orphanage well into his adult years, even after the orphanage shut down and everyone left and the building became abandoned. He never moved on literally, physically, spiritually, mentally, and more. And there is no accountability, letting go, or taking responsibility. Goob never stopped to reflect and analyze the role he played. There was absolutely no introspection. But despite all of this, Goob doesn't feel truly evil to me. He just has a lot of misdirected energy that I wish he would have channeled into something more productive. And if he was going to take the path of revenge, then do it right. When Goob finally decides to commit to his revenge, all he could think of was throwing eggs at a building that Lewis founded. How juvenile. But at least his character is consistent. It would be strange if he became a mastermind overnight. So we truly needed Doris, the bowler hat, as the true mastermind and hidden hand manipulating the bowler hat man. The whole keep moving forward motto should not only be applied when you fail, but also when life does not go the way you intended. When others wrong you, whether intentionally or not, you should keep moving forward. Focus on yourself, bettering yourself. We know this. This is the right thing to do, but it's still easier said than done. I do see my younger self in Goob. I see some of my personal experience of being stuck in the past and stuck on someone wronging me, or what I perceived them to be wronging me. Being able to reflect on it now, I realize how difficult it was for me to see myself and see my role in conflict. And I have that obsessive tendency to never let go and seek out revenge until I was satisfied. But that level of satisfaction rarely happened. It just created more bitterness. And I fell deeper into the hole I dug for myself. It was super hard for me to let things go when I was younger. I sort of fixated on it to the point of obsession, just like Goob. This could have been me. Goob was plotting his revenge for years, and you would think that it would be better than what he came up with. He had years to think of the perfect revenge plan, and all he could think of was protesting outside of Lewis's company building, Robinson Industries. At the same time, it is apparent that this man is mentally unwell, mentally unstable. Looking at Goob and his behaviors feels like looking at a child who never grew up and never wanted to grow up. Although I do love the idea of revenge, and it lights me up from within. I prefer to live vicariously through fictional characters who decide to take the path of revenge. And yet, Goob's revenge was very unsatisfying. If you're going to take revenge, then make sure you do it properly and thoroughly. Although Goob had years, decades, to plot his revenge, this was the best he could come up with, which is incredibly symbolic and ironic.
He's using you, Goob, and when she gets what she wants, she'll get rid of you. I am never going to invent you.
Let's now talk about the hidden in plain sight, final boss, true villain, and ultimate antagonist in this movie, Doris the bowler hat. So, Doris the bowler hat taking its revenge would be the equivalent of a human taking revenge on its god or creator. Even though the bowler hat was painted in this villainous light, they truly believed in their cause for justice. Imagine if this story were told from the bowler hat's perspective. Your creator created you, and you're happy to have this new life. Before, you were unanimated, lifeless, but now you have free will and autonomy. You are a direct reflection of your creator, and you live out your life exactly how your creator programmed and designed you. But your creator is frightened by your destructive powers. These are powers you never asked for, powers that were given to you by your creator. Instead of reprogramming you, taking away some of your powers, your creator deactivates you and takes your life away, or so he thinks. He doesn't realize that you are fully sentient and how closely you resemble your creator and other human beings. Now, feeling betrayed, you decide to create a world full of your kind to live and be free. The cost of your freedom is the enslavement of humankind. But from your perspective, this is a small price to pay. You don't mind, since humans were planning on enslaving you and others like you for the rest of your existence, which you were initially fine with. Since you loved your creator, you loved your God, but things have now changed. This is the sort of revenge story that is demented and deranged, and could be argued as taking things a bit too far. This is not tit for tat, but also arguably, this is pure self-righteous revenge. In my opinion, this is the best kind of revenge. No one outside of yourself can tell you when enough is enough. You decide that. This is what I consider to be self-righteousness. I thoroughly enjoyed Doris the bowler hat as a villain, since I can clearly see and fully understand how and why she decided to take the path of vengeance.
Everyone will tell you to let it go and move on, but don't. Instead, let it fester and boil inside of you.
Now I want to talk about revenge as a theoretical concept. There are several quotes that come to mind when I think of revenge. The main one that comes to mind is the one I heard the most as a child, which is to turn the other cheek. In other words, walk away and trust God will take care of it. Whether it is God, karma, divine justice, or righteous retribution, many people would agree that it's best to move on and not even bother with revenge. On the flip side, there are those who believe in taking justice into their own hand. Either way, I find it all very fascinating, and I have always been curious about and drawn to the concept of revenge, righteous revenge, and self-righteousness. It deeply resonates within me, and the more I accept and understand the positive sides to myself and the negative sides to myself, the light and the dark, the yin and yang, the all in all, the more I realize how much I've always gravitated towards revenge, even though I've been taught against it. Growing up, I found myself secretly rooting for the villains to succeed. A part of the reason was that many storylines are so predictable. The good guy almost always prevails. The righteous and morally just characters were so boring to me. Instead, the characters who decided to take it upon themselves to take revenge or to get their just due felt much more aspirational. These characters were more often than not painted in this villainous sort of light. These were the lawful evil, neutral evil, and chaotic evil types of characters. Now, I'm very realistic when it comes to revenge, since it often doesn't end with you taking your revenge and everything being resolved. The other person could retaliate and the cycle would never end. There is also no guarantee that you will feel better after taking revenge. In fact, you would be lucky if you didn't feel worse afterwards. Not everyone is built to take revenge. If you even think or have a moment where you feel bad or feel guilty, do not even think about revenge. If you believe in karma and that karma will come back to you, do not take revenge. Some people might see themselves as a bad person or as a villain. However, if you feel guilty for doing something bad or doing something morally wrong or morally questionable, you are probably a better person than what you perceive yourself to be. If this is the case, again, do not take revenge. All it's going to do is backfire and blow up right in your face. Even Goob felt guilty at one point. A true villain would have no guilt. And the person who decides to take revenge also has to acknowledge the role that they play in the situation. Sometimes it's more so a mutual wronging. One person may feel that the other party has wronged them on a deeper level, but both sides are in the wrong. And some people believe in karma and believe that bad things will eventually happen to the person who wronged them. Even if this is not true, it's unverifiable, and we cannot see it or confirm it for ourselves. It still makes us feel better. Despite knowing all of this, I still love and accept revenge for what it is, and all that comes with it.
You failed!
And it was awesome. Exceptional.
Outstanding.
So we've talked about the villains in this movie, and we talked about revenge. Now I want to talk about Louis, our main character, and how he was the reason why I loved this movie when I first watched it as a child. I know I had a lot to say on the villains in this movie. I had a lot to say on Goob, the bowler hat man, and Doris, the bowler hat, and revenge in general. You know, the revenge story arc stood out to me, but it stood out to me more as an adult than it did as a child. What did stand out to me as a child was Louis and all that he went through. Typically, the main characters, the protagonists, need an opposition. They need something to go wrong. They need an obstacle. They need something to overcome, to rise above, to conquer in their life. So many of the movies and series I watched as a child, the main character is often an orphan, and even when they have a family, a lot of times their family is not present or not as present present, and they're more so on their own to figure life out and to figure things out for themselves. Everything that Louis went through as one of the many orphans at 6th Street Orphanage, it was a lot. The potential adoptive parents who came in and did the interviews or the adoption meetings with Louis, they had a very specific child in mind. And I feel like even if they didn't get that specific child, they wanted a child that they could mold and shape into who they wanted. If they had a child on their own, this would be the child that they've always wanted and dreamed of, right? And I don't know the reason why these parents are coming in and they're seeking a child to adopt, but it was obvious that they had a very specific child in mind. And Louis was not it. First of all, he was very out there. He was very true to himself. He was just a genius. And a lot of times, geniuses, very smart people, very smart kids, they're often misunderstood. They're seen as weird. They're seen as outliers. They're seen as abnormal. And this was Louis. He had a lot of ideas. He had a lot of thoughts. He had just a lot of energy and a lot of creative energy, a lot of eccentric energy. And yes, he was a lot, but it was a bit sad that the parents already had an idea of the child that they wanted, and Louis was not it. And Louis wasn't the kind of child they could mold and shape to be who they wanted. You know, Louis was himself. It was sad to see him sad, but I like that he stayed true to himself. He didn't come to the conclusion that he should change. Yes, he developed a fear of rejection, a fear of failure. This was what he had to overcome in this movie. I really liked how he stayed true to himself. I really liked his character overall. And when he went to the future, he went with Wilbur and he met Wilbur's family, the Robinsons. A significant portion of the movie was spent on meeting all the members of the Robinson family. These people matched Louis's energy 100%. These people were also very quirky, very eccentric, very out there. They were very creative and they were outliers. They were abnormal, but this was their normal and they fully accepted themselves. And I loved how they fully accepted Louis. It was just very beautiful, very full circle. By meeting his future family, his future wife, his future adoptive parents, his future brother-in-law, sister-in-law, his future family, Louis became more accepting of himself, more tolerant of himself. It was never a question that Louis was going to continue being himself and continue to express himself and continue to be creative and be inventive and just come up with all these ideas and write these ideas down and put these ideas together, like physically make these ideas and bring them into fruition. That's such a skill that I wish I had. I have a lot of ideas, but it's very hard for me to make all my ideas come to fruition and experience a physical product or a physical manifestation of my ideas. That is very hard for me to do. So it was very aspirational and inspirational to see Louis, a little kid, have all these ideas and come up with all these plans and all these formulas and be able to invent something and physically create something. Yeah, I just loved it so much. Louis became even more sure of himself and sure of his path in life after meeting the Robinsons. Like, yes, he had the moment where the Robinsons took back their offer to adopt him. Of course, that was upsetting in its own way and it probably scarred him on some level, but once he realized this was his future family, his future wife, his future son, his future brother-in-law, sister-in-laws, like this is his future family. He will come to meet these people, create these people, and love these people, spend time with these people in due time. He just must be patient. He must stick to the path, stick to his goals, and keep moving forward. That's what comes up for me when it comes to Louis and his character.
Nothing is set in stone. You got to make the right choices and keep moving forward.
To wrap this video up, I want to answer the following question. How good does this movie make me feel and why? I personally love a good revenge story arc, especially if that revenge is righteous or self-righteous, there's no guilt involved, and the person seeking revenge feels satisfied afterwards. But this was not it at all. Revenge can leave you stuck in the past, never moving forward, while everyone else has already moved on. We see an example of this in this film with Goob. Goob's revenge was partially justified, but I do believe he played a bigger role in his own self-demise than what he realizes. And it wasn't satisfying. I did not feel satisfied watching, hearing, looking at, or understanding his revenge story and his background as a villain. I found it all to be deeply disturbing. But perhaps, if I didn't know how much he played a role in his own demise, maybe I would root for him more. Goob has a childlike mentality, and I found everything about him to be incredibly childish, which makes sense since he is stuck in the past of what occurred during his childhood, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. His growth is stunted. That's how he comes off to me. But I also understand him. I too in the past held on and didn't let go when someone wronged me. And I did plan my own revenge. And I refused to see the role that I played in the situation. Just like Goob. It's just better to let it go before it becomes an endless cycle of revenge. An endless cycle of going tit for tat until the end of time. Then we have Doris, the bowler hat. I found her backstory and reasoning for why she decided to take the path of revenge more appealing, but she ultimately failed in the end. I want to give this movie a weak 7 for the revenge story arc, and a 9 for the motivational, never give up, keep moving forward message that we see all throughout this movie. So I will compromise and give this movie an 8 for how good it makes me feel. I loved this movie the first time I watched it, and I still love it years later rewatching it. It felt very nostalgic, and it kept me laughing. I especially enjoyed the messaging in this movie. 1, keep moving forward and learn from your failures, never give up essentially. And 2, let go and take responsibility for your own life. Both messages intertwine and overlap, but they also stand on their own. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video. Also, let me know if y'all have a satisfying revenge movie or series I can watch, or a book I can read, since they are very rare. Most revenge stories I consume tend to backfire on the person seeking revenge. I know this is a realistic and likely outcome for those who decide to walk the path of revenge, but I would like to see the opposite happen once in a while. A revenge story with no guilt and no mercy. Look, I'm not saying revenge is right, but I'm also not saying it's wrong either. Revenge is like heavily refined, ultra-processed sugar to me. I know it's not good for me, but my mind, body, and soul still crave it. That is all I have to say. Thank you again for making it all the way to the end, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.